You are watching Call for Two, broadcasting live from Champaign, Illinois, Monday, September 12th, 2022 at around 11 p.m. We are playing today turn 10 of the play-by-mail game from murdersbymail.com, Sherlock Holmes' Fellowship of Bones. I have the reply right here. And it feels like we are getting to the natural end of this case. Whether we wrap it up soon or just drag it out remains to be seen. I see in the channel, Blake is here, Anna is here, Matt is here. All right, so I don't have that much to talk about other than getting into the game. You know, if you've been following along, that the LA Noire case, Murders by Mail case, will play after this one at 1 a.m. in a couple hours. I think we'll finish this session early, so there'll be a little layover, and then we'll play that game. Anything else to catch up on in the chat? Anyone up to anything interesting? We played the third case of the Cold Case Investigation Unit last week, and it was quite good. I still have to record a review of that series in the next few days. But I finally got the bugs out of my OBS plugin, so there will be a video of that soon. And I think I'd like to play one of the Sherlock Holmes West End Adventures cases next week and try the new plugin, the new system. So maybe we'll schedule for that. But if you are interested in helping us decide what games to play next, you can visit the Board Game Geek Guild section for this channel. You'll find a link to it in the community tab on YouTube. All right, doesn't look like anyone in the chat has anything they want to talk about in terms of what they've been up to. I watched the latest episode of the House of Dragons, the Game of Thrones spin-off. It feels like a poor copy of the original. Blake says, does anyone know how to get their hands on the Suspects demo case, or is it even worth it? Suspects was a card-based mystery game that came out last year. I picked up a copy. I have a copy of the demo case, which I got at Gen Con. I don't know any other way to get it. I was not a huge fan of the Suspects system. There is an announced second box for it coming out, which I think I will try because I didn't give it a fair enough shot. I was sort of rushed through those cases that I played, and I made some mistakes. You could maybe contact me and I could maybe send you the demo case. But I would say it's not worth it unless it's a shorter case. If you played the others and you love it, and then you play the new box and love it, then let me know. I'll send you the demo case. But try to get your hands on the new box because that's probably more of what you want, of larger, fuller adventures. Okay, Matt says he's continuing to watch more episodes of Alfred Hitchcock Presents. And Anna says, I've got a root canal. Yes, I've had a root canal. It's not fun. It wasn't especially painful, but it's a scary thing. I don't know why our dental stuff, it seems like it's primitive. I'm ready for the full stainless steel jaw replacement technology to come out. It seems like the teeth are the worst part of the human body in terms of upkeep and maintenance. They should figure out a way to just swap in your whole jaw. You put you to sleep, swap out your whole jaw for a nice stainless steel model, and never have to worry about it again. That just seems like the more civilized way to do it. Okay. I'm really proud of this OBS plugin, by the way. I can't wait to record a video demonstrating it. Let's get to our case here. If you'll remember where we left off, just to refresh your memory, Watson went and talked to the Chemical Society guy on the last turn, and it wasn't very useful. But we focused into our prime suspect, which is this guy, Richard Davidson, who was in a lawsuit with the victim, won, but only won a tiny pittance. So, and we know he's a chemist. We tracked him down in the cab, escaping from the scene with iodine on his pants or blood. So we're following him down. This was the chemical society guy said, he's in dire financial straits, but I haven't seen him in a while. Wiggins went to the pawn shop following up our side case, and we basically completely nailed the coffin in Joseph Lawson, who hired us for this case, but has been really nervous and seems like he's dozing off on opium. And we found out he's the guy who's been pawning all this stolen stuff. So we think he's the gentleman bandit who's been stealing stuff, pawning it, and then going to the opium den. And then Miss Hudson followed up with the legal records office, and she got the name of the lawyer of Richard Davidson, who is Archibald Collins. So we've been following up our main suspect, and where we sent people, here, let's just open up the replies, and remember it shows us where we sent people. So we decided to send Watson back to the Burlington house. Whoops, where's Burlington house? Back to the Burlington house just to look more around the scene of the crime, because we didn't have anything better for him to do, and it felt like we would be remiss in our duties if we didn't fully investigate the different rooms in this place that were near the scene of the crime. But then we sent Wiggins to the Police News, and you remember we were trying to find the address of his brother, the victim's brother. And then we sent Hudson to the lawyer to try to get him to we sent her because we thought she might be able to finagle some facts that should be protected by lawyer-client privilege, but maybe someone will think, what this old woman, what she can't hurt to tell her a little bit. So the lawyer of Davidson. So basically, we're following these two tracks, or maybe you could say three tracks. One is our prime suspect, and the other track is our victim, trying to get to his brother, because we don't know exactly the circumstances under which he was killed. That's still a little bit mysterious. We have a good motive that this guy wanted revenge and it was in financial straits, but we don't have a great motive. And then we're just nosing around the scene of the crime. All right, let's go through this. Here's Watson first, and this would be turn or reply number 9, right? Okay. The Royal Society Lecture Theatre is a cavernous round space with row upon row of wooden benches rising in elevation towards the back of the room. At the front is a small raised stage with a lovely cherry wood lectern and an immense slate blackboard on the wall facing the audience. Along the side walls are oil portraits of some of the luminaries that have spoken in this august place. Among them are Charles Darwin, Sir Joseph Banks, Sir Humphrey Davy, and Michael Faraday, all real famous scientists. I closed my eyes for a moment and tried to imagine what it must have been like to hear Charles Darwin speak in person. Remember, this is Watson. He's a scientist and a doctor, so he appreciates this lecture hall. The thought was a heady one. "Good afternoon, sir. May I help you?" came a voice from behind me. I turned to find Mr. Munro, the head butler for the Royal Society. "Ah, Munro, just the fellow I had hoped to see. I have a few more questions for you if time permits." "Oh, I am at your service, Dr. Watson." "I got a description of someone who may be a suspect in our murder, and I wondered if you would know anyone who it might fit. A young man of middling height, likely in his 30s, with black hair and no beard." This is the description of the person out the back, I guess. I can think of several people of my acquaintance who might fit the description, sir. But the one that springs to the front of mind is Mr. Davidson. He's our librarian, Mr. Keith's assistant. Now this is concerning me, because you walk into the lecture hall and he just named our prime suspect. Is this a false lead? This could be a completely false lead, because this is giving it away too easily. He's just named our prime suspect. Let's find out why he thinks he's a good candidate. Is he not also a fellow of the society, we ask? Yes, although he's come on hard times and was obliged to take up employment. Lord Kelvin was charitable enough to set him up with Mr. Keith. Have you seen Mr. Davidson recently? Mr. Monroe thought this over carefully for a few moments. Why, no, I don't suppose I've seen him since the day of the murder, now that I come to think of it. Though, that does not mean that he hasn't been here. As he now rarely frequents the sitting room, it is certainly in the realm of possibility that I simply missed him. Lord Kelvin and myself are often as ships passing in the night, as it were. Are you aware of Mr. Davidson having any association with Mr. Edwards? No, I cannot say that I do. But that does not mean that no such association existed. It is well beyond my purview to know of such matters. Yes, I quite understand. Well, thank you for your assistance, Mr. Monroe. Oh, any time, Dr. Watson. Okay, so we do know what the connection between the two of them are. They had Davidson invested in Edwards' scheme, his diamond mines in Australia, and was ripped off and sued him and won, but won just a tiny amount of money. Anna is reminding us it was weird that neither the cabbie nor the washerwoman confirmed that the reddish splashes were blood on his trouser. We know he got in a cab and left the scene of the crime, and we know he had red stains. He left red stains in the cab and on his trousers, and it is weird that we know he's a chemist, and his cleaning woman said, yeah, he gets iodine on his pants all the time, and that's what it was, or he said it was iodine. So we don't know whether to believe that or not. Anna says, yeah, it's not realistic that a washing woman wouldn't recognize bloodstains. I got to agree with you. I think almost anyone can recognize they were fresh bloodstains too. So maybe they were iodine. Blake says, I think she would believe iodine looks similar since she wouldn't know. I mean, I guess if the scientist told her, hey, you don't know what you're talking about, that's iodine, maybe she would believe him. But you'd think she might mention, like, kind of looked like blood. Most people know what fresh blood looks like. But here, try to think of it a different way. He rushes home. He takes off his clothes. He scrubs it and washes it with his cleaning stuff. Then he gives it to her. So by the time he gives it to her, it looks very faded out. So by the time he gives it to his washing woman, maybe it doesn't look like blood anymore. It looks like big smears of brown stuff. Right? That's not a reasonable hypothesis, at least a valid explanation for why she doesn't know whether it's blood or not. Okay, but we didn't learn anything here other than it's already pointing us to our prime suspect. Okay, here's Wiggins, who went to the police news. The Illustrated Police News was like an ant's nest after you pour water on it. All manner of activity and no order that I could see. There was an almighty racket coming from typewriters and people yelling back and forth to each other across the room. A whole row of men sat hunched over desks drawing the next day's front page. I never know how many people it takes to put out a newspaper. It might make me think twice next time before I steal one. Remember, he says drawing the front page, and that seems like what they did back in those times. The front page of the police news, at least, was hand-drawn with the stories of the day. Remember that the police news had a story on our victim that mentioned his brother when we went to this guy's house. He's like, I'm not the brother. Go, if you're so interested, go talk to the cops who wrote that story. Maybe they know where he lives. Okay, here we go. In a far back corner sat Hubert Fisher. as dapper as a cove as you've ever seen, with a desk so clean you could eat off it. Once I explained I was working for you, he stood and shook my hand as friendly as you please. I'm afraid I don't have much more information than was in the article, old chap, he said. The police wouldn't let me down to the crime scene, so most of what I know is from witness accounts. Yeah, well, who'd you talk to? The head butler, Mr. Monroe. Also Inspector Lestrade, though that only briefly, and he wasn't very forthcoming. There was a fellow of the society, a Professor Samuel Doherty, who spoke to me at some length. He's quite upset. Seems he'd been a mentor of sorts to the victim. That's where I learned about the dead man's career and his next of kin. You said in the article that the victim had a set to do with someone. Who told you about that? The whole place was packed with alarmed men who wouldn't speak to me on the record. I must admit I simply overheard it. But I did so from multiple conversations. It seemed safe to take it as fact. You gotta know some coppers, right? They tell you anything you didn't print? Nothing yet, at least as regards this case. Last month they put me on to several reports of theft at the Royal Society. I went around asking for comment, and Lord Kelvin himself threatened to sue the paper into non-existence if we ever so much as breathed a word about it. I wanted to publish anyway, but my editor killed the story. Honestly, can't say if it's related to this murder, but it might be worth looking into while you're investigating. Well, I make no promises, but I'll tell Mr. Holmes about it. Does that happen often? You have a story you can't put in the papers? More often than I care to think about. There are powerful men in this country who fear scandal more than death. In order to stay in business, sometimes we must acquiesce to their demands, however much it may rankle. That don't seem right. I quite agree, old chap, but I'm not the one who makes the rules. Oh, right. Well, we didn't get what we hoped to get here. It's weird. He mentions, you wrote about his next of kin. And he's like, yeah, I did. And he doesn't tell us anything more about it. But he did talk to Lestrade. I can't remember if we've gone and talked to Lestrade yet. I don't think we have. I can't remember. So Samuel Doherty, I believe we've talked to him. He was quite upset. Can anyone remember, did we talk to Samuel Doherty? Is he I don't remember what his role is. But he learned about the next of kin. But he didn't point us to it. So this was nothing. I mean, he mentions the thefts, the Gentleman's Club thefts, but this is just to keep pushing you to remember to follow up on this secondary case. But we already wrapped that up. Remind me about Samuel Doherty, whether we talked to him. Anna says it looks like we can't meet the brother. I think that's right. That's how I would read that too. Doherty. Well, let me look him up in the directory. Samuel Doherty, Doher. Well, I haven't marked it in the book. Northwest 33. Let's see on our map if we've actually can see if we've gone there. Northwest 33 is not marked. I guess we haven't been there. Maybe this is new. Let me take it back. Is that the first time we've heard of this person? Charles Stewart talked about running into Doherty. I do not remember that, but I do know that it doesn't look like we visited him. And in fact, actually, so reply 9, turn 10, Wiggins, Samuel Doherty, Northwest 33. Professor. Upset. Yeah, he's a mentor. I thought we talked to him. Mentor of the victim. And actually, this reminds me of to make sure that we actually put marks on the last places we visited. I guess we could do that. Or not these places. Yes, these places. Let's just see. I want to make sure I put stickers. I suppose I could do that offline. The Linnean Society, not running into Doherty, just the mentioning that he was a mentor. Okay, so we've got a new person that we might want to visit. Someone who knew the victim well. I suppose that might be worth doing. If we check our lists here, we definitely did not visit him, at least not at home. All right, let's read our last piece. Charles Deacon, Esquire, has an office that's just a few blocks east of Hyde Park. The address must be worth quite something because the office itself is tiny. There's hardly room for a desk and 2 chairs. Mr. Deacon himself was a slender man of about 40 with thinning hair and a trim Van Dyke beard. I'm not sure what a Van Dyke beard is. I think maybe a goatee. I introduced myself and apologized for the late hour as it was nearing 7 o'clock. Think nothing of it, he said with a smile. I often work into the evenings. It's a benefit of being a bachelor. Well, I work for Sherlock Holmes, and we're investigating a case that may be related to a lawsuit you once litigated. What can you tell me of this lawsuit between Warren Edwards and what was the name? One R. Davidson. A rather straightforward fraud case, as it turned out. Edwards sold my client shares in a diamond mine in South Africa, reportedly for the development of the mine. He promised huge returns. When those returns failed to appear month after month, Mr. Davidson retained my services. Fortunately, he'd had the foresight to have me look over the contract before he invested. The original one proposed by Mr. Edwards was nothing short of a miscarriage of justice. The one we settled on was much more generous to the investor, and it made our case strong. As expected, the trial was decided in our favor. It seemed to me to be a most amenable conclusion. However, he trailed off. Yes? Well, Mr. Davidson was most displeased with the amount of the award. He had invested several thousands of pounds. More than he could afford, it seems. And he recouped only 100 pounds. He was incensed when the verdict was read. Had to be physically restrained by the bailiff. By my accounting, he was lucky not to be brought up on charges himself. And in your opinion, was his anger sufficient to be a motive for murder? Murder? My goodness, who said anything about a murder? Well, Mr. Edwards was murdered in the basement of the Royal Society just recently. And Mr. Davidson is a suspect? That's what I'm trying to determine. She's taking on the case now. It's not even Sherlock Holmes. That's what she's trying to determine. I wish you had mentioned this at first. You've put me in a tricky spot. Ethically speaking, I don't currently represent Mr. Davidson, but I surely wouldn't have been so free with my words if I knew you were investigating a murder. I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave. It was only... No, I'll not speak another word. If you wish to know more, you'll have to speak to Mr. Davidson directly. This interview is over. And with that, he ushered me out of his office. One thing that's fun, we don't know what the other, if we had sent different people, what they would have said, but this was exactly our plan, right? Like, send in Miss Hudson as the harmless old woman, and maybe this guy will tell her things that if he was more on his guard, he would have said, "What's this about?" But she just waltzed in. She's like, "I'll have some tea. Hey, tell me, what's this guy that was involved?" And he just like spilled the beans. So that was quite nice. However, we learned nothing more except we learned that it was a lot of money he invested, thousands of pounds, and he really couldn't afford it. So there's our motive for murder. That's a reasonable motive. But we really didn't get too many new places on our radar, except for Northwest 33, a friend of the victim, a mentor of the victim. I like how he was just telling us everything, and then he finally realizes I should not be revealing information about this case. All right, let's think about where we want to send our people next. If we look at our informant list, that's one set of candidates. We've still got the lawyer for criminal cases, not civil cases, but criminal cases. I don't know that we have any reason to go there now. We've got the criminal underworld informant, Porky Shinwell. We really don't have much reason to go here either. Mycroft, who knows about government and spying and stuff. We don't have much reason to go there either. The London Daily News, information on current events, particularly in government. Don't really have much reason to go there, but you could imagine we might ask about iodine and blood. But really, none of those informants jump out as being places of interest. If you look at our notes and other places we've considered going, we haven't. We've got this new person, mentor of the victim. I still like our theory. 2 tracks, victim, suspect. So here's a lead on our victim. We still don't know what was the circumstances in which he was killed. We can continue our line at the Burlington house of going to a couple more places. We went to the antiquities guy, I believe. Didn't we? Or I guess we didn't. We know there was something about an Egyptian vase, so that might be of interest. We haven't visited the... Was it the lecture? Where did we send Watson this time? B5. Okay, so this was Watson. We sent him here. But we haven't visited the sitting room, the last room our victim was in before he went downstairs and got killed. So I think the sitting room is a very good candidate to go. And the president's office, B1, is quite near where the back door was and the scene of the crime. So the president's office and the sitting room are good candidates to check out in Burlington House. And I'll also mention that you can go to the main location of Burlington House. We don't know why you would do that rather than a specific place, but that is an option. Now, another option that I think we should pursue is the Countess from the newspaper. So the Countess has a little side story if we're trying to wrap up our side stories. In addition to the opium jewel theft, there is this side story about the daring jewelry robberies of Countess Howe. And we noticed most of the people and places mentioned here are not look-upable, but actually Countess Howe is. We believe you can find Countess Howe's in the directory. There is. There's actually 2 entries. They live right next door to each other. This seems like maybe husband and wife or mother and daughter, but that seems, and they live in a posh area, so that's going to be the Countess. What do we have her first name? Countess Howe. Anyway, I think it pays to do a little bit of side mission checking out on Countess Howe, Northwest 58 or 68. Let's just see where that is on our map. Does she live next to the park? Let's see this fancy place this Countess lives. 58 and 68 are the house. Right there. 58 and 68. Yeah, pretty close to Regent's Park. So I think we should sooner or later go to one of those. Then we've got the other pawn shop where our victim pawned his boomerang, remember? Then we've got the Golden Dragon Club where our guy goes to do his opium. We could try to confront him there and say we know you are stealing for the fun of it. Doesn't look like we can visit the brother. Alright, well there's a bunch of places. Anyone got any places they're especially keen of that list? Let's see. Anna says, President's room is also valid. Burlington House sounds good. Sitting room, Countess could be interested. Wiggins could go to the pawn shop. All right, let's send Wiggins to the other pawn shop. And let's send... Okay, so the other pawn shop where the guy sold his boomerang, we don't think that's going to be all that important, but it might. It's good a loose end to... I do think we should do the Countess, and we should send Miss Hudson to the Countess. So let's send Miss Hudson to the Countess. Let's send Watson to Doherty, who's the mentor, who's been mentioned twice now. That seems to make sense to me. So Watson is going to go... Where did I say Watson was going to go? To Doherty, the mentor. That's Northwest 33. We've heard him twice mentioned, so I think it makes sense. And he was upset. He was talking to the paper about it. Okay. And I think Hudson should go to the Countess. Let's see if this side story is something that we need to get on the trail of. Now, we've got two addresses for the Countess. They're both housed. They're surely the same place. A Howe A and a Howe M. I'm trying to guess which one is the mother, daughter. I guess there's no way to know. Let's just go to Northwest 58. So 58 is Howe A, and we'll get redirected if that's the wrong, if it's the Countess's husband or whether. Okay, so Wiggins is the last one. All right, so we can send Wiggins to the pawn shop, or we can send him in the opium den. Okay, we could send him in the opium den to confront our thief. I've got a suggestion, logically speaking. This game promises that things can happen. People could die, the culprit's trying to thwart us. I think we should confront our guy in the opium den early. Maybe we could do a little bit of traditional police leveraging. Like, if we catch him, confront him, maybe he'll tell us some information he hasn't been telling us to get himself out of a jam. And it's not like we're not going to go confront him, right? Sooner or later, we got to confront him. So I think we should confront him in the opium den and see what happens. He may not even be there. They may just tell us, oh, yeah, we recognize him. But I think that would be fun, and I think Wiggins is the guy to do it. Okay, so Southeast 58 Golden Dragon Opium Den. Okay, those are our 3 places. I see we've got a little question in the chat. I will address that in a second. Let's put in our entries here for everyone's happy. No one's got any problem. Let's go. Okay, Watson is going to, where's my top down? Let's see if I fix that. Okay. Watson is going to Northwest 33. Wiggins is going to Southeast 58. And Miss Hudson is going to Northwest 58. All right. Here we go. Let's submit it. Aha. Okay. Well, we know what this is. Let's look at this. Northwest 58 has a few different things Miss Hudson might be interested in. All right. Well, we are familiar with this. We believe this is when there's no good entry. So now we have to make a decision. Let us try changing it to the other how. I expect that will also give us the same type of response. Northwest 68. So I'm going to try that. So we're going to, let's see, what if we reload it? Okay, so I'm going to put this in again. Northwest 33, Southeast 58, and now we're going to go Northwest 68. This is the other how. Okay, so it's got the same complaint. Matt is asking if the stream is choppy for anyone else. Well, but also choppy for me. Interesting. I'm looking at the connection. It looks okay. All right, let's talk about what we want to do now. The tablet is telling us basically that this is not a place our interpretation is there's no entry for this. Now, what we did last time is we just said, okay, there's no entry here. Anna said, wasn't 68 the number last time? No, it was 58 I did last time. 58 and 68 are where the hows live. Okay, so we've got a choice here. We could maximize our reply quality by putting in something different, going to wherever. Or we could take this opportunity to see what happens when we actually type in, we want to visit the Countess. Probably it's going to send us a reply saying nothing was found. But we don't know. So we don't know what's going to happen. It seems like this is an experimental stream. So there are going to be some of you who are watching who are just like, let's wrap this up. We've solved it. But we tend to play these things more slowly and comprehensively. So I think we're curious about the system. We want to see what happens if you put in an address and you fill this out. And we want to see what kind of reply we get. So I'm going to put in 68, which is what we did now. We're just going to put this as missing. And we're going to type in something. What we're going to actually type in why we want to do that. And we're going to say Countess how. No, not Countess however. Countess how. Diamond story in news. Okay, whoops, So if there is someone human who looks at this, then they're going to write it. Now let's just make sure here. Robbery of valuable jewelry, property of Countess Howe, was effected at Portsmouth Harbor Railway Station. Is there reason that we should know that this isn't in London, even though it's in the London paper? Is Portsmouth Harbor Railway Station not anywhere near London, and then therefore we should know not to... Should we know that Portsmouth is not related to this case? Portsmouth Harbor Railway Station. Who's from England? Could we know? Blake says, I want to follow a real lead. I have to get talked into the idea that that is not the home of the house. Countess Howe. Well, where else would we send Miss Hudson? We could send her to the Burlington House place. I think we've got to test it. I think we got to test it. We want to see what happens. Blake says it's about 50 miles away, the Portsmouth Harbor train station. Hmm. 50 miles away. They've got two houses, have two residences. And it says it looks like it's not a side case. Yeah, it does look like it's not a side case. I agree. But still. They're in the railway station. Special train, Prince Edward of Saxe-Weimar and the Countess Howe. Other guests of the Duke of Richmond during the Good Week reached the station. She could go to the pawn shop about the boomerang. All right. You talked me into it. We will change our minds about where we send Miss Hudson. But maybe we'll go back before this game is over and send her someone. So you don't want to send her to Burlington House or to the pawn shop? You want to send her to the pawn shop. Okay, let's send her to the other pawn shop. Where is the other pawn shop? We went to the Chinese pawn shop. Southwest 76. We've also got the Bank of London that our side case guy said he was going to, or the guy who hired us. Let's make sure we don't forget that. All right, we're going to go to the pawn shop. She doesn't seem like she's the perfect person for the pawn shop, but I guess you don't really need the perfect person. Southwest 76. guess I gotta reload this just in case. Don't want to take any chances here. All right, northwest 33, southeast 58, and then southwest 76 is the pawn shop from the paper. That's this pawn shop here. And that's the place that he pawned his boomerang, I believe. I'm almost positive that that's the pawn shop that we know about. Just make sure it is the pawn shop. We learned about Samuel Doherty very early on, and we wrote down his address. We just never went to it. Trying to make sure that the pawn shop that he left his boomerang at is the same as this pawn shop here. Can anyone confirm that? Yes, that's the one. Bernard and Strand. Okay, here we go. All right. Move has been sent. All right. I will mark these with stickers a little bit later. I'm just going to write down here, tried northwest 58, northwest 68. For house, Countess Howe, no entry. We think we're interpreting that to mean no entry. What if it just wants you to type in that you're looking for the house? No, surely not. That's not how any of that works. All right. Well, we've got our assignments in. We're sort of scraping the bottom of the barrel a little bit with these clues. I'm a little bit concerned that this last person we talked to at the Burlington house just pointed us straight to our prime suspect, but maybe he's not. He actually is not saying he's a suspect. He's just saying that looks like our guy. So the description we gave him of seeing the guy leaving at the back. We'll have to decide how much evidence we need to try to solve this case. We don't really know what happened at the scene of the crime. How did he get killed? What was the confrontation over? And we don't have a good way to find Richard Davidson. If he went to visit his mother, I wonder if we couldn't. Do you think we know Davidson, our prime suspect, lives here, right? Is it possible that we're told by his landlady that he visits his mother, right? Train station. I wonder if there might be a train station right near his house that we might visit and say, hey, did this guy get on a train? Do you recognize him? EC 3666. I'm not sure what train station, but that might be a way if we want to try to find our culprit. But maybe we're never going to be able to actually catch up with him. I'm not sure. Blake says, I did wonder if there was a behind-the-scenes system that would take some more work on the author's part. Well, we don't know what happens if you submit something there. I suspect it just goes into their records and they ignore it. But it's possible that a human looks at it and says, okay, we need a new entry for this. We might want to try it before we solve it. All right, I guess we'll stop there. We're sort of we're in a lull here, but we've got a good motive, but we do not have good evidence. I don't know how we're gonna prove that he had blood on him without finding him. And we don't know where he got the key. We think he probably got it from the librarian who has a key. All right, let's end it here. I'll see you in 1 hour at 1 a.m. for the LA Noire case. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.